Hayley Stavely.
Rosie Waterland.
In 1978, 909 people drank poisoned Kool-Aid and died in what a lot of people call a mass suicide, but most people who know about this story would call it a mass murder. It at least was the biggest mass casualty event in the US up until 9/11 happened, a few decades later. So today I'm going to be giving you just the gist of the Jonestown Massacre.
Good. I'm glad I wasn't in a perky mood to begin with.
Yeah. Yay! Do you know much about this story?
Yeah, I know a bit. It falls into my circle of interests.
Yes.
It's cults and stuff.
Cults, murder.
I made the mistake of listening to the tape once. If I could go back in time and delete that experience, I absolutely would.
Yeah,
I do not recommend anybody ever listen to that.
We'll get to that. It's pretty grim, the audio of this event, which I listened to it once. It was on a podcast, and so I only listened to a few bits and pieces of it. But it is really eerie and horrible, and just
awful.
One of those things that's like, do you need to?
Yeah.
Really?
Does that need to be out there? Just get rid of it.
Yeah. So,
but fascinating study in human behaviour.
An extremely fascinating study in human behaviour. So, if you haven't by now, going off the words mass murder, realize that this one probably isn't one for kids, then just
unless you have very disturbed kids.
Yeah. All right, shall we?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's.
So this whole thing starts with a guy called Jim Jones. He's born in 1931 and his home life is not excellent. His dad had some pretty bad injuries from World War I that made it really difficult for him to work, and his mother doesn't work at all, so they're extremely poor, and they end up losing their house, and extended family buys them like a little shack kind of like in the woods on the edge of town to live in, like no plumbing, no electricity. It's literally just like a shed. And so Jim Jones is born into that situation and is like a little kid when his dad starts getting hospitalized all the time, and his mother apparently drinks a lot and takes off and is not particularly maternal. Don't know what that
I wonder
feels
what that's like. Good job not becoming a mass murderer.
Thanks.
As far as we know.
As far as you know. And so from a young age, Jim Jones is just left alone a lot, like left to kind of fend for himself. And he would often like wander the streets of the town he lived in, like people would give him food. They felt sorry for him. He was just like, that
like a little stray
family
dog
that lives, on the wrong side of the tracks, and there's this little kid. But it was also, at the time, one of those things where people are like, you don't want to pry, but here's a sandwich and off you go. So he wasn't, in a really great place as a little 4 or 5 year old. And
I don't know why I'm feeling sorry for him. Like, I know where this goes.
I know.
But then I always think, if you go back in time, could you kill the kid? Like, could you kill kid Jim Jones, or could you kill like kid Hitler?
When they say, "Would you kill toddler Hitler if you went back in time?" And I don't know.
I know. And now I feel sorry for him right now because he's a little stray dog wandering the streets getting sandwiches from strangers.
And now I'm imagining Punch the monkey is going to grow up to be like a mass murderer of his tribe.
Oh.
It's like, should we have killed? None of us knew. He was so
quick.
Cute.
Go and smash his head in.
Should we have killed Punch the monkey? He was a monster the whole time.
That brain chemistry is just bubbling away.
Yeah. So eventually a pastor's wife feels really sorry for Jim Jones, and she gives him a Bible and tells him to like study it, and she gives him some food and some clothes, and she's like, come to church. And he goes to the church service on his own. He's about like 5 years old, and he loves it. Like he just loves, I think, probably the community, like the attention that he gets for a little bit there. And so then he starts going to eventually pretty much every church service at every church in his town because like, I know, you're like, oh no, that's so sad. Because, I think he'd be getting routine, he'd be getting generosity, probably some kindness, food, like just general warm human interaction, which it sounds like he doesn't get. Oh my God, church to him is his IKEA orangutan. Why do I keep comparing Jim Jones to Punch?
Because you cannot think about anything else, rightfully so.
So he gets obsessed, not so much with religion, but just with the community that surrounds like religion and church life, and he starts preaching from when he's a really little kid. So his favorite kind of church services are the like really Pentecostal ones. He goes to a lot of black majority black congregation churches, and he loves that style of preaching as a little kid. So apparently as a little kid he starts just preaching on street corners, and that's
where the vibes are.
That's his
thing. I wish we had those here.
And so he's doing that from when he's really little, and then he gets to his 20s, which is, around the 1950s. He gets married, and he and his wife have a bunch of kids, like some very, rainbow family, Angelina Jolie, like some their own, some adopted. They were the first couple in their state, white couple in their state, to adopt a black baby. Like
it started out so good.
Yeah, like I think because, growing up as he did, just devoted to church life, and particularly devoted to the kind of Pentecostal church congregations that he really grew up with a sense of wanting to give and wanting to be part of a supportive community, but also support the community. Yeah. And so he, has his wife and their little rainbow gaggle of kids, and he's preaching on sometimes they'll just go to towns and he'll just preach in town on the street. Other times he goes to other people's churches as like a guest preacher. He starts to become known around Indiana, the state where they live. And eventually enough people start loving his preaching and sermons so much that they want to follow him specifically. So he forms what he calls the People's Temple. Like that's sort of his church. And on the surface, the People's Temple is kind of awesome. And a lot of people do say early on it felt amazing. It felt like we were really changing lives. So like up until things started to go pretty sour, and they do get very sour.
About as sour as they can get.
About as sour as cyanide in Kool-Aid. Things were quite good, but I guess, that is the way with most cults, because otherwise who would join them if they start off bad? Yeah. So the People's Temple focuses a lot more on community-based like socialism and communism.
I didn't know even what you were trying to say, because you were saying
communism, like style, vibe, ideals. Like it focuses a lot more on that than religion. Like I think he
like
probably
communal living style,
pretty much
all for one for all.
Like I think he's not super into the religious stuff because he wants to be the god of everything, but he, like, so much of what the People's Temple is about is like taking care of everyone always. So like healthcare, housing, food, nursing homes. It's like the whole thing of, you work and provide what you can, and then you are provided with and given what you need. And he wants everyone to be equal. There's a huge focus on racial equality because of the style of preaching that he does. He attracts like a lot of black congregants, and they're doing really cool stuff. Like his wife is a nurse, so they open like a healthcare center that people can come and get free healthcare. They also decide the elderly need to be taken care of, so they open essentially like nursing homes. They're like, you give us your social security check or your welfare check or whatever, hand that over to us every month, and then we just provide a house for you to live in with food and bills paid. And they're just kind of providing what the government, I think, should be providing, but through the church. I mean, yes, as is the way with communist groups, you have to hand everything over that you have, but then like the ideal like scenario is you end up taken care of course, usually it ends up in some kind of weird dictatorship, but this is just the gist. We're not going to get into like
some
the ins
mild
and outs of Animal
foreshadowing.
Farm, but so a lot of people sell their homes and give him the money, and in exchange, he kind of sets up this community where people are taken care of, and eventually he gets a bunch of like buses and a bunch of his followers and him travel around the country like preaching but also kind of recruiting, and they move their base to California where there is quite a surge in leftist style socialism ideals at the time, and people are really into the cause. They like what he's doing. Like he's actually
sounds great.
Really
he's
helping
making
people.
things happen.
Yeah.
Not just talking about it.
Yeah. And so when they end up based in California, their number of parishioners had grown over like about 15 years from when he just started on street corners, from a handful to like about 1,000. And that's just the people based there. Like there's more, across the country. And the parishioners are like majority Black Americans, a lot of them elderly. I think he just knows how to charm the older Black ladies.
He knows his audience.
He grew up with them.
Because as a kid in the church,
exactly.
That's who he was charming every week.
Exactly. And I think, he also just by virtue of the way he grew up, he understands how to relate to people who a lot of those Black parishioners are of the lower socioeconomic class that he was growing up. So this is how he grew up. He knows how to relate to these people. He went to their churches. He knows how to charm them. And so outside of those congregants, the other big percentage is like young, affluent white people who, are really like gung-ho about wanting to live for a cause and just be really performative in their progressiveness. And so they join as well because they're loving what he's doing and how he's trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And but to be fair, they were doing a lot of cool stuff at the time, like on top of all the support he was providing, people in the community who needed it. They would also do things like if they heard someone of color was refused service at an establishment, they would organize like a big protest of that place. And then Jim starts getting known in the press as like a really great giving man in the community who helps those in need. So then he starts getting like influence with politicians. So because they had so many parishioners, like they could get laws changed based on turning up to vote for things. Like he started to get a lot of sway, and it really did look like he was using it for good. So I think that's one of the things that surprises people most when they hear the Jonestown story is that, it would appear that Jim Jones actually did some cool stuff, like totally against racism, but also went on to mass murder people.
Yeah, because I don't remember it starting off so well.
Well, so that's how it looked to a lot of people, and that's how a lot of people did experience it at first. Some people say that it wasn't until later he started drinking and taking drugs that things got bad or started to go bad. But a lot of people also say he was always a bit off and dodgy from the start. So, part of a lot of the sermons he would do from the start had to do with like healings, where you like touch someone on the head and they're like, blah, and they start talking in tongues.
I love watching those.
Yes, and you like
pull
spirits out of them, like that kind of thing. And, he, from the very beginning, would do things like a lady would be in a wheelchair and he'd come in and the whole room would sort of get this mass hysteria. He's saying he's going to heal her. He puts his hand on her and she stands up and like walks for the first time in years and people can't believe it. But actually it was just like his secretary.
Yeah, it's actually just Gypsy Rose.
Yeah,
the whole time.
Kind of. So, and then like he would do other things like, you know, tell people I can feel cancer in this room, and he'd go over to someone and be like, that you don't know, but there's cancer in you, but don't worry, I'm going to heal you. And he'd like do all his by Jesus's power through me. And then he would like pull like out like this like gooey looking disgusting thing, but he like would hide chicken like entrails in his pocket.
Ew.
And then convince people that he found cancer inside them. Like,
okay, but 10 out of 10 for the pageantry though.
I know, right? It's like
that's
very
amazing. The commitment to that.
Very theatrical. But then he also, you know, would do things like loyalty tests. Like he would get people to sign like blank pieces of paper that he would then write really disgusting confessions on, just to prove that like you were never going to leave, because if you do, your name is signed to this piece of paper that says like, you know, you're, I don't know, a pedophile or something. Like they would do like, and so even though people are like, yeah, he did all this great stuff, and but then other people are like, well, actually, behind the scenes, all these
there were signs.
There were signs. I would say there were some signs. Yeah. Some pinkish flags, really, getting people to sign their names to blank confessions. And he would also do things like was constantly faking like either him being murdered or his own suicide to see how people would, like, he'd get someone to go into the church and be like, Jim took his own life, and like for 5 minutes people weeping, and then he'd come in like, I didn't. Like, so, you know, I think this is someone who we love to speculate wildly about people's, you know, mental pathology on this show. I think from when he was little, had a desperate need to find some kind of belonging, a desperate need to be loved, to somehow fix the abandonment he felt from his parents, and he's doing it in some interesting ways.
I can confidently diagnose him as fucked up.
Yeah. And then he also, you know, he would do this thing where he would get everyone to like drink, you know, juice at a church meeting, and then he'd go, there was poison in that juice and we're all going to die now. And like he'd be like, you can't leave because we're all going to die together. And this is like, and then he some people would actually start like, like,
yeah, because they've been practicing it.
Yeah, and then after like 10 minutes or whatever, he'd be like, we're not actually dying, but that was just a test to see if any of you would try to run to the hospital. Like,
it's Tyra.
Yeah, it's
acting.
He's just constantly like testing people's love for him, their loyalty for him. It's really weird stuff. He starts tentatively talking about revolutionary suicide a bit. Like, he just would bring up things like, we're trying to live this new way of life. Threat of nuclear war was like on the horizon. So he'd start talking about like, you know, just it would be if you ever needed to. Not that, I mean, this is crazy, but maybe someday when the world goes to shit, like, revolutionary suicide's actually a noble thing to do. Like, just saying, just by the by.
I got you guys.
Maybe table that for later kind of thing. So he just starts mentioning stuff from pretty early on.
They're planting little seeds.
Yeah. And there is also, as is always the way with men who are in charge of religions, particularly their own, there's a lot of sexual abuse going on. He has a lot of really weird ideas about sex, generally being no one else should be having it and he should be having as much as he wants. He, I mean, I guess he's bisexual because he abuses men and women equally in his congregation. He like impregnates some women. He essentially just, if anyone, he will bring anyone in that he wants to, you know, abuse if he feels the urge. So that's going on. And that's
divine right.
That's all happening behind closed doors. Like, and nobody's really allowed to talk to each other about it, because they have also like a kind of system in the congregation where, like, a dobbing in system. If someone's like, hey, like, do you think it's weird that Jim's talking about revolutionary suicide and that woman that he spent a lot of time with alone is now looking pregnant, and then the person they're talking to would be like, I'm totally dobbing on you, and then that person, you know, so it's like people are scared to talk to each other. And so even though everyone's saying like they were doing a lot of stuff, they were doing a lot of amazing stuff, they were, but also a lot of dodgy stuff was happening.
What a stressful life.
Yeah. But to the outside world, mostly the People's Temple just seems lovely, like a lovely group.
Lovely group of well-meaning
who are taking
weirdos.
care of the kinds of vulnerable people in society that would otherwise be a bit effed. So like someone's got to do it, and they're doing it. And so, you know, when we're in the mid-70s, this is when some families of loved ones who have got swept up in People's Temple start asking some questions. Like, they started going to this new church they really liked, and then they sold their house and handed over all their money and possessions, and we haven't heard from them, and we think it might be a cult. So some like media and press starts doing a bit of sniffing around, like, what is going on with this People's Temple? We're here, like some people are coming to us with some dodgy whispers, and this is when Jim Jones is like, we're out of 5,000, we're leaving, we're getting out of here, because he just, whether or not he apparently starts taking drugs and starts to get more paranoid, or it's his own stuff, like people have speculated both, but as soon as like there is just even the minor bit of negative questions towards him from outside sources, he's like, we're leaving the country, we're going.
Nope.
And so he decides, we're going to pack up the entire like congregation, because most of them have nowhere else to go because they've given up everything and live in the like facilities he provides. And so he's like, we're going to start our, you know, socialist utopia community somewhere else. And so he does some research about which places are likely to be the safest in the event of a nuclear war, like a nuclear blast. And he decides through his research that South America is safe. And they have, you know, quite a lot of money from the people handing everything over to them. So they get some land in this place called Guyana, which is in South America. And this land they get is nothing, like it's jungle. They've just got this huge patch of jungle. And he decides, we're going to build a community there from scratch, like infrastructure, everything, a little town for us to live. And he doesn't want any part in how difficult that's going to be. So he sends like the young, strong, kind of basically all the young, white, affluent, super progressive, woke, like congregants he has. He sends,
go make us a coconut Nintendo.
Basically, he sends them to Guyana, and he's like, build a place for us to live from nothing. And so they have to go there and like clear the jungle and literally start building infrastructure, like, you know, toilets, plumbing, kitchen facilities, enough accommodation for about 1,000 people, including a lot of elderly people and children. Like, they have to build everything. They end up having, you know, there's like a community pavilion in the middle. It kind of looks a lot like a summer camp. It's like all these wooden structures. So there's like a big pavilion in the middle. There's like a dining hall. Then there's a bunch of like cabins that are where people sleep. And they are working so hard, these guys. Like, they're getting up at sunrise, they're going to bed at sunset, and there's hardly any food because none of them know anything. So the land that they have is not land where you can really grow very successful crops, and also they're like white rich kids. They don't really know how to grow crops. So
they don't even have DoorDash here. This is weird.
I know, I don't like this. So they're eating like hardly anything, and it comes out later that Jim was, not surprisingly, really obsessed with communist countries like Russia and North Korea. And And so he started studying North Korea's methods of manipulating and controlling their population. And he realized, you basically just work people to the bone and make them so exhausted and hungry that they can't really fight back or think for themselves. So that's kind of what he does to the people in Guyana when they're building the place. And once there is enough sort of basic infrastructure there, he's like, okay, it seems not so horrible now, so I'll go now and we'll bring everyone else. And so they bring about a little over 1,000 people, literally all of them, to Guyana. They have like a little airstrip that's just a laneway of grass, and they have small planes that fly everybody over, like kids.
How long were they
families
building it for?
It took them about a year, and they were still building it when everyone got there. So it's like it wasn't easy. It was like it wasn't. Yeah, it is a bit Fire Festy. Certainly not the paradise. A lot of them thought, we're going to go to South America and just live in jungle paradise. And it's like,
we'll have monkey butlers.
Yeah. So things are not great when he gets there pretty much from the get-go. So when he turns up, apparently his crazy level has just like gone times 10 million. One of his sons said in interviews later that like he was doing a lot of amphetamines at the time. And so he would just sort of like wake up and do amphetamines and then drink at night. And he had his own little like house in the like camp, and that's just all he would do.
Like super clean, because he'd just get up and just,
I guess,
amphetamine his way around.
Yeah, just clean everything. And of course he calls, even though it's like the People's, they call it the People's Temple Agricultural Project, I think. But he calls it like colloquially Jonestown because his last name is Jones. And he sets up like a PA system that is all over what is, essentially just like this big summer camp. And he just preaches for like 15, 16, 17 hours a day. So he's just getting drunk and taking amphetamines. Yeah, and just babbling and people are yawning and exhausted. And like he's gotten very weird and paranoid and narcissistic. And his sermons aren't so much now about, like, they're not even really pretending to be about Jesus or God. It's just about like the world is going to come to an end and everybody's out to get us and nobody like wants us safe and it's us against the world. Like he's just like gone a bit nutso. So people start to get a little worried. They're like, okay, this isn't quite the socialist utopia paradise we thought it was going to be, and we built this whole thing and we're really tired, and now he's turned up and he's being really weird and there's no food, and maybe we want to go home.
Yeah,
but
I don't like this.
He takes everyone's passports when they get there, and also they're surrounded by jungle. Like the only way in and out is by plane onto the little airstrip they built, or you would have to hike like hours through the jungle and then drive hours to the local, like the closest like town, city. Yeah. So there's just not really any way for people to leave without him knowing, and he doesn't want to let anybody leave. Yeah. So I just imagine turning up like, oh my God, paradise. And then it's like just a bunch of wood shacks and you've got to look after a whole lot of old people and kids and there's not enough food and he's ranting.
Like a cheese sandwich in a styrofoam plate.
Yeah.
That kind of isolation sounds terrifying to me, even if it was somewhere cool. Like if it was the ultimate summer camp.
Yeah.
The idea of like complete middle of nowhere, just one plane in or out.
Yeah.
And like, whoa.
It kind of gives me the same icky feeling in my body of like being in space or being deep under the ocean, like stuck. So they had all kind of dreamed of living in this community where everybody contributes and everybody is taken care of, and it's the kind of ultimate like proof that socialism can exist in a successful way, and they really want to make it work. And so a lot of them, even if they are like feeling a bit strange about it, a lot of them are still like devoted, I think, because of the whole sunk cost fallacy thing of like, I've put in all this time, you know, I've ruined relationships with friends and family. I sold my house. I have nothing left. I've come all the way out here. I spent a year building this. Like, I need to believe this will work. Even if Jim's being a bit weird right now, this can still work. So,
well, and I feel like he made the dream and the, you know, the social good that they were going to do the center of it for so long that you'd think you could just kind of focus on that and go, no, we can still do that part. Like, he can just go off the rails if he wants, but like, we know what we're here for and we're just going to keep barreling towards that.
I think, a lot of them were clinging to that, but also a lot of them did just want to go home. Like, people are hungry. There's not a lot of food. They're working for hours and hours and hours today while he just rants at them over a PA system. And he's also designated a group of men to be like security, and they're essentially kind of like prison guards. They all get given like rifles, and they all have a lot of power go to their heads, and they kind of like walk the perimeter and a very, there's just, I was going to say vaguely threatening, but it's like very threatening to just have men with huge guns walking around all the time.
Yeah, like you already put them in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, right.
It's fine.
And then Jim Jones starts doing these things that he calls white nights. And this is because he seems to have really become convinced that at some point the government is going to come and try and break up their community, or like some war is going to break out, like, and people are going to attack them. Like, at some point they need to like know what they're going to do if the worst happens. And so he starts doing these things called white nights, which are basically rehearsals of what they will do in the event of like something terrible like that happening. So it could be like 2 or 3 in the morning, and he just suddenly like starts setting off an alarm over the PA system, like white night, white night, white night. And everybody has to get up and get dressed and get their bag, and they have to like run to the community pavilion, almost like a fire alarm. And then they have to sit there while he preaches at them. And he does this, like, it could happen 3 or 4 times a day at any time. And there's this documentary I watched, but I'll put all the documentaries in the show notes. And this one guy said this was the point he started to get really scared, because when they would do these white nights and all gather at the pavilion, there were the men with the guns were there, which Jim was like, you know, they're here to protect us because we're going to gather here, and the men with guns are going to surround us with the guns, and this is how we're going to keep safe. And this guy was like, I realized during one of the white night rehearsals that the guns were pointed inward at us rather than outward at whatever danger was coming.
Threat.
And he was like, oh, this is about us not leaving, not about anyone coming to get us. And this is also when they started to practice what Jim Jones called revolutionary suicide. So during these white night, you know, rehearsals, he would say, if we get to a point where, you know, in a post-nuclear war regime or something where we are pure and we don't want to be part of such an awful world, we can die together in the name of socialism. And he's like, what we're going to do is give you this drink, and everyone lines up and drinks this drink, and then, you know, we will go out together on our terms. And it wasn't so crazy when he started saying that, because he'd been dropping it in drips and drabs for years. And so when he finally just outright was like, let's start rehearsing drinking poison, it wasn't totally shocking. A lot of people, though, were like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. But there were also a lot of people who fervently were into it. So a lot of people were just into his whole thing, believed it totally.
So interesting.
And there were some people who later said, you know, he'd always been very theatrical. His way of preaching was always very theatrical. And when he was doing this kind of thing, you know, at first I was like, well, this, you know that stories in the Bible are exaggerated stories in order to teach you some kind of moral lesson or whatever. Like, this is kind of his version of that. Like, this is like just a sort of
Parable
or what, or an allegory or whatever the words are. And so people are responding to this in all sorts of different ways, but the one thing they all have in common is they can't leave even if they want to.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
So he's doing these weird suicide rehearsals and he's got armed guards and he's not letting anyone leave. And at about this point, there are some people back in the US who are like, where is my family member? Like they just joined this church, sold their house, and then they were like, we're going to live in, a weird summer camp in South America in case there's nuclear war. Bye. Yeah. And so some people back in the US start pressuring their local congressman to do something about it, to like check on them if they're okay. And so there's this congressman called Leo Ryan, and, enough of his constituents have come to him like, yo, our family members have disappeared to this place in Guyana and they're with this dude and we don't know what's happening. And so Leo Ryan's like, you know what? Yeah, I'll fly there. And
I see some red flags.
Yeah.
It's a little sus.
I'll fly there and just check what the haps is, to just be like, hey, what's going on? Are you guys good? Like that's
any
his
suicide
plan.
drinks?
And he is like, Leo Ryan is very diplomatic about it. He's kind of like, I'm not going there to shut it down. I'm just going there to check that the people who are there of their own free will. And if they are, you know what? Live and let live. I'll go. I'll leave them alone. But some of my constituents are worried, so I'm going to check. So he organizes a trip. He decides it's going to be him, a few members of the press, couple of people's family members, and he like gets in contact with Jim Jones and says like, we're coming. Jim Jones privately freaks out, but also it's like meant to be, just nothing to, why would we be ashamed? This is a socialist utopia. Like, so he's like, yeah, you can come, totally. Like, we'd be totally happy to have you. Hangs up the phone, freaks out. He's like, we've got to prepare everyone. So he starts making everyone rehearse, like almost like media training people. He's like, when they come here and they ask you what it's like, you have to tell them how happy you are here. You have to tell them that you love it here. And, you have to say how this is the best thing you've ever done and you never want to leave.
There's too much food, if anything.
Yeah, like I'm not hungry at all. I definitely had enough to eat today. And Jim is freaking out that people are going to want to leave, though, because, I mean, deep down he must know, like, this place sucks.
And you'd think, like, if you were still entranced, seeing people from the real world would kind of snap you out of it.
Yeah,
like, that's what I would be thinking as him. Anyone, I don't know, it seems just too risky. You got to keep everybody, you got to keep them insular.
Exactly.
It's Cult 101, mate.
Exactly. So he's getting really freaked out about this congressman trip, even though he's doing what he can to prepare people to answer the way he wants. He suspects that people don't actually feel that way. So he's freaking out about what's going to happen. And I think his wife really suspected that things were getting bad with him and that this trip could possibly be really bad because they have one of their sons living there with them who's now like, I think he's about 19 or 20, and she organizes for the time that the congressman is going to be there. She organizes like a basketball trip for a few of the boys to like go into the closest town called, I think it's called Georgetown. And she's like, they'll go there to play some basketball for a few days. And he said in interviews later, like, I'm pretty sure my mum knew he's lost his mind. Shit's going to go down. And she did what she could to keep him alive.
Yeah.
So everyone's trained up to like put on their best face in front of the camera. They've got to be on their best behavior.
The leader.
They've got to tell the congressman they're happy and that they're not hungry at all. And they get a lot of food together. So they bring in food from the town and to make it look like they just, you know.
Like North Korea.
Yeah.
Where they have all those fake shop fronts and stuff with the fake food.
They're kind of doing a North Korea, you know, blessed with nature's bounty, here it all is. And they're like people behind the thing like opening packets and like putting, you know. And
don't touch it.
Like they're making it look like what they originally had planned for it to be, and it isn't. Like, they want it to look like just this beautiful place where people are taken care of and they're living the kind of life you wish you could in this jungle paradise. And so the congressman gets there. He like flies in on a plane to their little airstrip. I think there's 2 planes there maybe. And he goes into Jonestown and it's actually going quite well. Like, there's footage of him walking around because there was some press with them filming. And so he sort of gets a little tour of this place. Like, Jim Jones takes him around and there's like cute kids running around and there's like little old ladies saying how happy they are. And Jim Jones is sort of saying stuff like, I don't know why people are worried. I don't know why people are persecuting us. Like, we just want to live this beautiful way of life. And you know, we're not keeping anyone here. If they want to go, they can go. Like, and then that night, Congressman Ryan gives a speech because they have like this big communal dinner, almost like a bit of a party. And he sort of says to them, you know what, like, I didn't know what we were going to find here, but I think this is really nice. Like, I think you guys have created a really beautiful way of life. I don't want to take that away from you. And thanks for having me. And everyone cheers. And it's like, yay, the visit's gone well. But while the congressman is there over the course of that day and he's staying the night and then they're meant to be going the next day, a few people do secretly slip him or like part of his little entourage notes saying like, get us the F out of here.
Yeah.
And so he approaches those people and they're like, we want to go. And so then he goes to Jim Jones and he's like, look, a few people have told me they want to go. I don't think it's the hugest deal. Like out of 1,000 people here, it's like maybe 10 people or something. So he's like, when we go tomorrow, we're going to take those people home because, you know, like you said, no one has to stay. If they want to go, they can go. We've got the planes.
Yeah, we'll do you a favour.
Yeah, and so Jim Jones is like, fine, they can leave. I don't mind. I'm not going to stop them if they want to leave paradise.
Give me the list of names.
Yeah. And so the next day, the congressman is leaving with, you know, the press he'd brought and the little entourage and the people who'd asked to leave. He's leaving with them, and they go to the little airstrip and they get on one of the planes. But then one of the people who said they wanted to leave and was on the plane was actually like a double agent sent in there by Jim Jones. And he suddenly whips out a massive gun and just starts shooting everyone on the plane. And Congressman Ryan dies. A bunch of people get shot and die. A bunch of people start running. And then as people start running, a truck with 10 of those guys comes with guns and they just start shooting anyone who tries to run. Like a few people get off into the jungle, but pretty much everyone who went to the airstrip that morning is shot. And there are these 2 planes and there's pilots who were waiting to fly them and they're like, what the F? And so they just take off. Like they just fly off as soon as like there's the gunman's off the plane, they just take off. And so pretty much everything shitty hits the fan after that point. Like they've reached a point of no return here. Like he sent a shooting squad and killed a congressman and members of the press. And it's just bizarre because it's like, this is where people often speculate as to whether he truly did believe, like he was spiraling with paranoid stuff and he did believe bad stuff was happening, or if he just knew like people, they're going to go back and tell stories but it's like he said it was fine. They only took 10 people. He said, it seems like you're doing well here. God bless, live and let live. It's like, why did you have to do this?
Because any slight loss of control for somebody like that is catastrophic.
Yeah, right? So Jim Jones is like, that's it. This is, Guyana's done. Jonestown is done. He starts doing a white night rehearsal, but this one isn't a rehearsal. It's real. So he gets everybody to come to the pavilion like they've rehearsed, and a few people in like the town know this is bad. They know that like this one isn't a rehearsal. This one seems real. There's one older
something in the air.
Yeah, there's one older woman who's really smart. She like hid under her bed. There's a few people who sneak off into the jungle. I mean, there's the boys who are on that basketball trip, but like honestly, of about the 909 people who are about to die, only 33 people survive, like from the whole congregation living at Jonestown. So it's not many. So essentially, Jim Jones surrounds the perimeter of Jonestown with like the guys with the guns. And then he says, okay, we're going to do our revolutionary suicide now. And like you mentioned at the start, there is audio of this because Jim Jones, you know, loved the importance of his own sermon so much that he recorded everything. And so he was recording while this was happening. And there are people like arguing with him. Like there's one really kick-ass older lady who's like, why would we do this? This is ridiculous. Like this isn't what Jesus is about. Like, can't we do something else? And she's like, you said you were calling people in Russia and North Korea. Like, why can't we go live there? And he's just like, no. It's very eerie to listen to because the way he's sort of preaching to them during all of this is like he's so sad. He's like, trust me, if there was anything else we could do, we'd do it. But this is the only way. Yeah, like, I love you all. It's really horrible. And so basically they mix a whole bunch of cyanide into this huge like vat of, well, people say it's Kool-Aid, but it was actually the brand Flavor Aid. It's like cordial. You just mix like powder and water and then they put a whole bunch of cyanide in. Yeah, it's like there are people who are always like, it wasn't Kool-Aid, it was Flavor Aid. And it's like, well, yeah, but you don't say cling film, you say Glad Wrap. So whatever.
And like, let's do some damage to the Kool-Aid brand.
Yeah. Okay? So they mix all of this cyanide in with this Flavor Aid, Kool-Aid drink. And that's where the expression drinking the Kool-Aid comes from. Although really the expression isn't entirely accurate because you can hear in the audio that some people were willingly doing it, but most of them did not want to do it. And he had the men with guns standing there and people were basically told, you either drink that and die via poisoning or we will shoot you. So it wasn't like just a whole bunch of cult-affected crazies deciding to drink the Kool-Aid together. Like they were forced to drink it. And it's really awful. They also like there were about 300 children there, like very young children, and he forced the parents to give it to their kids first because he knew like once their kids are gone, they'll just definitely want to.
That's what disturbed me most about the
awful.
Audio is the kids.
Yeah, it's awful. And it's like it's not like you just fall asleep and die. It's quite a violent, painful way to die, drinking this poison. And so the audio is really horrible because the eerie part of it is it gets quieter. So at the start, there's like, you know, the voices of 900 people lining up to get this drink and arguing and not wanting to and screaming and pleading. And then it slowly gets quieter and quieter and quieter as more people just die and die and die and die. And, you know, that's why really most people today call it a mass murder rather than a mass suicide.
It 100% was.
Yeah. Jim Jones, I think after seeing how actually awful and painful it is to die the way they did after drinking the cyanide drink, he doesn't want to die that way. But he also like doesn't want to shoot himself. He gets someone to shoot him in the head because he can't do it himself. And by the time it's over, the guards all shoot themselves too. Like that's how into it they are. And then there's just like 909 bodies just all kind of sort of collapsed where they drank the drink, just all piled on top of each other in the grass. Like you can look up the photos online. It's really horrible, but it's like a lot of people, a lot of people. And, the ones who were willingly doing it, there weren't many, but they were like really in it. Like there was one woman who was actually staying at a house they owned in the main town because they always had someone staying in that house just as like a go-between or whatever. And she had 3 kids there. And when the call came through on the radio, like white night, but not a rehearsal for real this time, she went and killed her children then herself. It's like she wasn't even there. No one was making her do that. Like so some people were drinking the Kool-Aid in the way you think that expression means, but most were forced.
Yeah, but I feel like that those people were still murdered because they were manipulated into that state of mind. It's not like,
Exactly. Yeah. So when the planes get back to the US with the few people who survived the gunmen, they're like, guys, it's not good. And the US is like, what the F? Shit hits the fan in the US pretty quickly. They send, US sort of, what do you call it? Law enforcement had to go and work with South American law enforcement to like do a cleanup of all of these bodies and somehow get them all transported back to the US so they could, have burials with their families. It's like a mass casualty cleanup event they have to do. It's really grim and intense. And I think that's why it is strange that it has sort of over history just come down to be like people just talk about it like it's a joke, but it's like very awful.
Yeah.
There's this one horrible story of this guy who he had a child there. I think his son was like 5 years old, the cutest little kid. All the kids were kind of communally looked after in a child care part of the little town. And he knows it's really dodgy there, and he passes a note to the congressman that he wants to go because he's like, I need to get out and I need to get my kid out, and probably the most likely way I'll be able to do that is if I get back to the US and then I can figure out some way of getting him out. So he's like, I have to leave him there and then go back to the US with this congressman, tell them what's going on, and then we can get my son, because they had armed guards around the childcare and stuff. Like he couldn't just go in and take him. So he was one of the people who went with the congressman that morning. When the gunman came, he was one of the people who ran off into the jungle, didn't get caught, and he survived. He hid for hours and hours and hours and hours, and his son was killed, his little son. Like it's just, there are so many awful stories like that connected to this, what became known as the Jonestown Massacre. There's, so many books and documentaries about it now. A documentary came out just last year that in Australia you can watch on Disney Plus. And again, sorry, I watched so much for this that I can't remember which ones are which, but I'll list them all in the show notes. But it was then not until September 11, 2001 that there was another mass casualty event of that size of, American people.
I mean, I'm glad there was a bit of a gap.
Yeah. And, that's just the gist of the Jonestown Massacre. It's the most fascinating part of, the documentaries that you watch are a lot of people who are willing to talk about being a part of it. And a lot of those people just genuinely talking about how lovely it was at the start. And also just trying to convince people, like, you don't understand. I'm a smart person. Like, I know a lot of people think, anyone who ends up in a cult, which I guess you would call it now, like this, must be an idiot. They all drank the Kool-Aid, what fools. But like, you don't join a cult knowing it's a cult. Like it was, we thought we were doing beautiful, wonderful things. And a few have even said, like, if the People's Temple existed today the way it did at the start, I would want to be a member of it still. Like it was just, by the time it all went so far downhill, we were all so entrenched in it. It's like, It's hard to even know how it happens. It's like the frog in the boiling water, in the pot of boiling water. You just don't know. You don't notice it.
Your whole reality is affected.
Yeah.
So you don't really know, you second guess your own thoughts and opinions about things. And I 100% would end up in a cult. And I know I would.
I mean, I know that I think a lot of children who had childhoods like mine end up in kind of they're drawn to institutions like the army or the police force or that kind of thing, because it's like you want to be part of something where you know the routine, you're taken care of, you're told what to do, you don't have to worry.
You for sure belong.
You're one of us. And so I can see really enjoy, as a kid, I freaking loved camp. I loved going on camp. That was my favorite thing in the world. I did army cadets in high school, not because I was into the army. I just liked routine and cadets.
Marching in the sun and throwing flower bombs at people.
I mean, but also it's vulnerable people, I think, often who are drawn to this kind of thing. This is weird. We might cut this, I don't know. But when I was a kid, my sister and I would often get sent on camps, subsidized camps, just because of our, when you're in foster care or whatever, usually in the holidays you'll get sent to some camp. And there was this camp run by the Salvation Army, and it was for foster kids and kids in the system. And we went, it was so amazing. It was the funnest week ever. We stayed at this place that was sounds a lot like Jonestown, just the wood cabins and all of that, and we did all this fun stuff and ropes courses and fun things, and breakfast is at this time and lunch is at this time and dinner is at this time, and you feel a sense of belonging. You don't have to worry about things. And it was actually a super religious camp. And on the last day they set up, we would do big church, I guess, kind of sermons every night that we got really into, because it was just you had dinner and now you're going to sing Jesus songs. And then on the last day they had this big service where they set up this sort of bridge thing, and they were we've loved having you here this week, and if you want to keep this feeling that you've had this week, a bunch of foster kids, if you want to keep this feeling that you've had, you will always belong to Jesus if you accept Jesus into your heart and join the church. And so they were if you want to keep feeling this and let Jesus into your heart, then get up and cross the bridge and join the church. And then if you did that, then when you got back to wherever you were living, they would make sure that there was a local church for you to go to every week. I was that is so manipulative. Yeah. Imagine the bunch of kids.
Yeah, did everyone go fuck yeah, I'm going over that damn bridge?
Everyone did. I mean, we went back to we were living with our grandma at the time, who was a major atheist, so she was just fuck that. But, everyone did. And I bet there were a lot of, maybe there are kids who are still fervently Christian now because of that week spent at that camp. Man, people get sucked into these kinds of things in all kinds of ways, and it seems like it is always a narcissistic man who takes it to the most violent, horrible extreme,
Yeah.
Because it seems for Jim Jones, for him, it was where he found a sense of belonging, and then he decided, yes, and now I will be in charge of it and offer that sense of belonging to everyone, and no one can ever leave me ever,
Yeah.
Weird stuff going on there.
Turn into monsters that just consume power and human souls.
Yeah. So that was just the gist of the Jonestown Massacre. And it wasn't Kool-Aid, it was Flavor Aid.
Yeah.
And
what a lovely sunshiny afternoon chat.
Well, we haven't done a major true crimey story in a while, so it felt like the time. So awesome.
I mean, it is a fascinating one. I love the people aspect of it. Not just the Jim Jones side of it, but the people who, you know, the different types of brains and how they get manipulated by those kinds of systems and in what ways and for how long and what's the trigger that stops it, or, you know.
Yeah. And then with
so interesting.
The benefit of time, like, you know, decades later, sitting down to be interviewed and them trying to articulate it to you and almost still trying to understand it themselves, like how they ended up there. That's why, I'll put in the show notes like all the docos and books and stuff, because it is
I think it's very hard to understand unless you've had any kind of comparable experience.
Yeah, I'd say so.
You know, like maybe the foster care stuff, or like an abusive relationship, or anything where you've kind of woken up a long time into something and gone, what am I doing?
Yeah,
like
how did
I get here?
We were just like giving little old ladies free healthcare, and now I'm in the jungle. Yeah, and there are men with guns.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Yeah.
What's the missing middle here?
Maybe that could be just the gist. Just make it 10 seconds.
Yeah, pull the rest of it out. It was too sad. Just tell them that.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Just the Gist, a Just the Network production. Executive produced and hosted by me, Rosie Waterland. Produced and edited by James Joseph, with additional production support from JTG team Kate Lever and Hayley Stavely, and Acast legends Guy Scott Wilson and Simon McDermott. Looking for breaking news? It drops on the Just the Gist Patreon every Tuesday, along with a whole lot of other bonus audio, video, and behind-the-scenes content, which you can access for just $1, $1 a week by clicking the link in the show notes or searching Just the Gist Podcast on Patreon. Follow Just the Gist on Instagram and TikTok at Just the Gist Podcast, and watch the video version of every episode on our YouTube channel, also at, funnily enough, Just the Gist Podcast. Follow Rosie, that's me, in all of the places at Rosie Waterland. Want to give us a suggestion? Tell Rosie to stop singing so much? Email us at hello@justthegist.com.au. Thank you, as always, for listening. Now go say something impressive at a dinner party. Bye.